welcome back. And we're moving into our first conversation this morning as we get an update from the Attorney General on the Amendment to Misuse of Drug Act and the public education that has been ongoing. We have with us Honorable Michael Peyrefitte. Good morning.
Morning. Good to be back.
Thank you for being here. Now, I believe this should be the rounding off of our coverage in terms of this particular amendment, and we have heard quite a number of concerns and persons who have supported the amendment itself. But it is law, and the current priority is to be able to educate people as to what it means. And I want to start off with some of the common misconceptions that people have and tackle those head on. So tell me what you find to be the number one thing that has to be dispelled at this point in time.
Well, the number one thing is that you cannot consume it publicly. And people have to accept that for now, because like we said, we wanted to make the amendment to the law, but we also wanted to do it incrementally. You can enjoy your marijuana, 10 grams or less, adults, in your home, your private premises, or on the private premises of somebody else who gives you permission to enjoy it on your premises. That's the number one thing. Can you smoke it in your car? Is a popular question. No. We are assuming that 90% of the times, except for people who own huge tracts of land, 90% of the time, if you're in your car, you're on a public road. And we don't want to encourage you to be smoking and driving in any event. It's a drug. It's altering, and so we don't want people to be not 100% fully functioning behind the wheel, you know, when they're driving. So we're at this stage, if you're in your car and you're smoking it, that's still illegal because we're assuming you're on a public road. If you just have it, simply possessing it in your pocket while driving, well, then you're fine. Simply possessing it anywhere except on school grounds, you're fine.
There's a question that has been raised by several individuals who have sat on this couch engaging in this very dialogue that we're having. And that has to do with a transition, in a sense, from what should have been, if you're found in possession of 10 grams, you're given an initial citation.
Right.
To now it being that it seems you're perfectly fine if you're found with 10 grams on your person or at home or wherever. Can you explain to us how that shift or how that understanding may have changed from me being caught with 10 grams and an officer writing me either a ticket and I go about my merry way as a first warning versus it is okay for me now to have 10 grams on me and I don't receive a ticket, a warning, or any such citation?
When we got the recommendations from the Marijuana Commission, if I may call them that, we noticed that, and we interviewed people who were arrested for marijuana in the past, interviewed the police officers who were doing the arresting. The biggest problem, when you hear somebody is charged for marijuana possession, they go to court and they get sent to jail. The number one reason, other than when they are found guilty of trafficking, is because they owe some fine to the court or something to that effect. It's not because you were sentenced to jail for having 2 sticks of weed. What happens is that it's a nightmare. It's an administrative nightmare to have a person, okay, any amount of marijuana you have on you, let's wait. Let's give you a ticket. Let's write it out. Where do you pay the ticket? We're saying, listen, let's take a step and let everyone who has 10 grams or less, about half pack of cigarette, if you have that or less in your possession, you're home free. There's no ticketing. There's no inconvenience. Because even though you would not be able to be sent to jail for 10 grams or less, that was not the inconvenience. The inconvenience was never, or the worry was never that you would go to jail. The problem was it's Friday night. You're found with 1 stick of weed in your home recreating, and the police throw you in the lockup till Monday morning. It was a huge, huge inconvenience. You're in there with murderers. You're in there for something that is, we believe, not any more harmful than illegal drugs you have out. So it was an inconvenience to have that system in place.
And you're right. I mean, I can't fathom the idea that, as in Creole, we would say, that like, a drug got a back to a stick of roach, to one small roach, compared to someone who may have committed a far graver offense.
Of course.
And when you look at the two things, it doesn't seem to...
Right, so what we're saying, look, if you're just a casual smoker, you should not be thrown in the peace house for that reason. Then that's what that was the reasoning behind it.
But is it really an inconvenience, or was it a tactic by the police?
Well, it was both. It was both. You have some officers, like everybody else in life. You have some officers who are decent officers who just want to. They are so strict. That is illegal. That is illegal. That is illegal. They will take you in for it no matter what. Then you have some officers, indeed, they will use it as a bargaining chip. If they don't like you or they have some personal issue with you, then they would use it to what we call bad mind you. Yes, it was happening. So what we're saying is, listen, take the bad mind, take the personal issues, take the inconveniences out of the way. Clearly, if you have 10 grams or less, you're a casual smoker. Let you enjoy that.
AG, I want us to have absolute clarity on this issue, because we have spoken of the amendment, and it has been introduced as a decriminalization of a small portion of marijuana. But we also hear persons like yourselves and Minister Elrington say legalization. But in law, there are two separate definitions.
I think you know what? We really, in Belize, we love to just make things complicated. Listen to me. 10 grams or less is legal. It's legal except on school grounds. It's legal. It's completely...
Or used by minors.
Or used by minors. 10 grams or less in the possession of an adult, not on school grounds. 10 grams or less being smoked by an adult in the private premises, their own private premises or your friend's premises, is completely legal. And I don't know, there's no complication to it. There's a sensitization going on. I heard Bart Jones from the police department explained it perfectly. I can't see where the misconception is. I don't see where the misunderstanding is. It's very simple. Don't smoke in public. 10 grams or less. Don't take it on school grounds. Adults only. What's the
Here's
So
another.
let's jump a bit further, because the violation ticket is also included in the law.
Yes.
What is the system set up for this particular?
Right. We're in the process of creating. We wanted to get the legislation in place to create the ticket, but it's not hard. It's similar to a traffic ticket. Now remember, the violation ticket is only for people who are adults, who are found on school property with the 10 grams or less in your pocket. For example, you may make a mistake. You may go to pick up your child from school. You may visit a school for some reason. You have your 10 grams in your pocket. It's legal. For some reason, the police are there. And they search you and they find that they say, listen to me, Sonny. Do not bring, but I only have 5 grams. This is a school property. Do not bring it here. If we find it with you, that with you again, then we will going to fine you. $100 in the first instance. It may go up to 500, whatever, if you're a repeat offender. And that's because you're only in possession of it. If you're caught smoking it on school property and you're an adult, then the old law kicks in and you're deemed to be trafficking in marijuana. So don't do that.
So the violation ticket is specifically for instances where a person is found with marijuana on school property or using in public.
No.
Okay.
If you no. If you use it in public, you're going to jail.
That's an outright
If I
offense.
stand up on Albert Street and I smoke only 2 grams, the police will arrest you and lock you up for smoking in public. Because you remember, when it comes to marijuana, there are 2 offenses. There's possessing it, and then there's smoking it. So under the old law, if the police caught you smoking a stick of weed, you would be charged not only for possessing weed, there's a separate offense for smoking it.
So to put it simple, right? It's almost as if though it's the same existing legal framework for public drinking, for instance. If you go to the Chinese store and you purchase a bottle of liquor, as long as it's sealed, you're allowed to keep that on your person. You're not consuming. But the moment you stand there and start drinking, then
public drinking.
you're public drinking,
If
you'd be fined for that.
We don't have to obey, but you see the signs sometimes they put up not for consumption on the premises.
Yeah. So it's something similar.
Don't consume it in public. Go home and smoke it.
So here's
So
my
the-
other question. My other
This
question.
conversation was never done with marijuana. You say.
We're wrapping it up, thankfully. But here's my other question. Some people have argued that, in a sense, it's putting the cart before the horse, simply because while I may be home free with my 10 grams once I have transacted, the act of transacting remains illegal, and so does the act of cultivating, planting and cultivating.
Because
Did the law or did you guys take into consideration this aspect of it?
yes, we did. and we debated it over and over. The number one consideration, to be honest with you, that we took in, we do not want to encourage weed smoking. We're not encouraging it. We're not saying go out and smoke weed. We're not saying that. We would hope that everybody would want to be completely drug-free, cigarette-free, alcohol-free, and marijuana-free. But that's not the case. We do not want to encourage it. So we're saying, listen, let's, as I told you before, let's cut this proverbial baby in half. You can't grow it, you can't cultivate it, you can't trade in it, you can't go on Facebook and say, I have the best weed, come and buy it. You can't do that. But if you happen to already have it, and when you look at the statistics, very few, I have never heard of a case ever, and I've spent in doing criminal defense for petty offenses for about 10 years. You never hear of people being caught in the transaction of buying $1, $2 worth of weed. Never. So we never saw it as a mischief that needed to be addressed. Who knows, maybe now the law will have to be amended as we go along to ensure that we take care of that. And remember, like I told you already as well, the law can be tweaked, it can be changed, it can be adjusted. So if anybody in the public, if you have an idea that would make it better, if you have an idea to make it more useful, submit your points to the government. We will look at it, and if it has to be amended to make it better, we will do that. If it turns out that people are not utilizing it to the maximum capacity but are abusing it, then you will be tending now to go back to the old law and say, listen, you're not mature enough to handle it, then we have to go back to the old law. So I'm appealing to people who use it recreationally and those who use it responsibly continue to do so, and then there could be further improvements in the law.
Now, obviously, part of the concern that people have who have opposed the law is looking at what exists in terms of rehabilitation for persons who have addictions. And while I know it's very tempting to spout all the positive attributes of marijuana, I appreciate you saying it is a drug, similar to how people can overuse alcohol, can be addicted to cigarettes. Marijuana does come with its own concerns as well. So let's explain to me what the process was in devising the law, considering that there is a void when it comes to rehabilitation in the country.
Well, we figured that there was a void in rehabilitation when it comes to cigarette smoking or alcohol drinking. So we didn't think that having a void in the rehabilitative aspect of it should have prevented us from legalizing a small amount of it. But what we're focused on for now is just the minors. We're saying if you are a repeat offender, if we notice that you're smoking marijuana to the extent that you can't live without it, it seems, then the minister is in the process right now as we speak of setting forth regulations to have that person be committed to a clinic for counseling, for treatment, whatever. We're devising those things in place. We're putting those things in place as we speak. However, what we're hoping for is this. We're hoping that if we catch a minor with marijuana, then we can do similarly to what we're doing under the Juvenile Offenders Court. Make them clean one yard, make them do some community service, have them know that the drug is illegal for minors. We haven't set up fully, in a full-fledged manner, a rehab center, for example, for marijuana. I don't know that we will ever need one. I hope we don't ever need one. But as we target the minors and as we look at the minors, and if we see that they are abusing it, then we have to get to the point where we say, look, we have to set up a full-fledged rehab center. What we're hoping and we're praying, that a responsible parent will tell their child, stay away from marijuana. I don't want this thing to get no more strict because I want to be able to continue to enjoy it when you're not here. So we're hoping and we're appealing to parents. I noticed you were talking about earlier about you can widen the roads, you can make it pretty, but at some point you have a responsibility to do what's necessary. Parents, please keep your children away from drugs, period. I mean, I know it's hard, you don't see them 24 hours, but we're appealing to the parents to not have us have a case where we have thousands of children in rehab because it reflects badly on parenting.
My question here, and I might be digressing a bit from the point that you just made. However, from a judicial perspective, I know you're not you don't sit on the bench, but from a judicial perspective, do you believe that this now clears up administratively a lot of the backlog that has been clogging the magistracy that level in terms of dealing with offenders of marijuana and what have you?
Oh, absolutely. It will not only free up the magistrates to a certain extent, it will free up the police. To me, we are in that very, very serious phase where people are committing more and more serious offenses every day, it seems. And we would want the police to focus on bigger things. We would find, when we did interviews and investigations with police, you would go there looking for a firearm or looking for grenade, and 10 police officers go into a building, and the only thing they find is one man smoking a spliff. 10 police officers, they bring in one man for a stick a week. Come on, man, we want them to do more than that. We want the magistrate's court to be clogged up with only necessary cases. We don't want 100 arraignments this morning and 40 of them are for people who were just simply recreating at home. It eases frustrations, I have found. I was away last week, but when I came back yesterday and speaking to people, and I noticed that there was a little bit of the ease in the streets of detention. And some of my friends were telling me, well, we stayed home. We stayed home. I enjoyed my 10 grams. I watched TV and I relaxed. And I enjoyed myself. So hopefully that will give people some sense of relaxation, that they can accept that they don't have to run from the police if they have one couple stick a week.
What happens to the persons who have ongoing cases for possession charges at this point in time?
Right. Unfortunately for those people, the law is not retroactive. So they will have to go through the process. But hopefully if it's just possession, and the magistrate's court can see clearly where the law is now, they will ease up on the fine, especially now since we have a situation
record get
where...
expunged?
Right. No, well, that's the problem. Yes, your record would get expunged if the fine is less than $1,000, and usually the fine is for less than $1,000 for small amounts of marijuana.
Now, there's one more issue I have with the violation tickets, because I think the purpose of this law, as has been explained by government and by those who support it, we know there is a marginalized section of society who would be targeted or who had been targeted for possession charges.
Right.
And when you speak about a system set up for tickets, what type of registry will be in place? How will I know if Isani has received a verbal warning before, so when I encounter him again, I'll be able to set up a ticket? And how do we not have that become the replacement of the persons who now have possession charges on them?
Very easy to remember, you know. That violation ticket is limited to school grounds. So then, and a number of policies can be developed for school property. The police fine you with 10 grams on school property. They immediately take you to the principal's office. They take down your name, your ID, whatever. There will be a momentary detention. And we want that because we want you to leave your weed in the car before you come on the school ground. Look, this is the name of this person. He's been warned. The principal can take a note of it. The teacher can take a note of it. The police can take a note of it and log it at the police station where they're stationed. So there will be a record of a person being warned. And we're asking the schools as well. If you see people on school property who don't belong there, call the police, call your security, call people. If you suspect that a minor or different minors possess marijuana, call the police so they come and warn those minors and say, listen, we don't see any on you now, but it is an offense for you as a minor to even possess it. There are many, many ways to deal with it. It's not difficult at all. And remember, this ticketing thing is only for schools. If you have 10 grams or less and you just sit on the park or you sit on the BTL park and you just buy your weed and you feel happy because you feel free up and you have 10 grams of weed in your pocket, and the police are through and they say, you have any weed? Oh, yes, officer, they're right there. See, I got my 5 grams right there. The police have to give you back your weed and go. It is not illegal anymore. 10 grams or less, legal. Just don't smoke it in the park.
I'd love to put that to a test. I'm not a smoker, but just...
You sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Well, when you were interviewing me the last week, I told you I would have smoked it on camera to show you in my yard that it's legal, even though I don't smoke weed.
For some reason, I think there's an apprehension. And I may be wrong. I get the feeling that there's an apprehension that despite the fact that 10 grams is legal,
it's difficult. It's difficult.
It's hard to buy into the idea that a policeman won't harass me.
It's very difficult. We had a conference a few years ago in Amsterdam, and one of the persons who was with us from the private sector is a weed smoker. So when in the brochure in the hotel, it says, do not buy weed from any person on the street. Get it at an established place. And if you don't know where the established places are, ask the nearest first policeman you see. And he was like, there was a mental block towards asking a policeman where he could buy weed. There is a mental block, I concede that. But just know that you can free up yourself. It's up to people like you all who are in the media every day, the police officers, the government, to disseminate the information. 10 grams, or put it this way, simple. It's almost like a poem. We should have a poetry contest. It's 10 grams or less, no minors, adults only, stay away from school, smoke it in your home. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. And don't fret. If you have half pack of, the equivalent of half pack of cigarette, and you fill that up with weed, you're good.
And there has been a sensitization process taking place with the police at this point.
Yes.
And we know, we've heard jokingly of people saying, well, you know, if I have 100 grams, I'll make sure I have 10 people in my home.
Yes, yes.
What is the message to the police at this point in time as to how you distinguish when someone is trafficking versus it's just possession for recreational use?
Well, if it's 10 grams or less, you can't even question the person. What the police will, and they know, the police know what I mean, we were working with the police when we came up with these.
Yeah, the police
10
know,
grams.
but
They
then
know.
the persons who are perpetrating will also get smarter as well.
No, well, I mean, there are loopholes, and if you're smart enough to create loopholes, it's like any other law. It's like any other law. You can get around it, you can get around it, fine. But what we're saying is don't possess more than 10 grams. Just do not do it. And to be on the safe side, you and your friends you always put your money together for buy a case of beer, right? You always put your money for buy, or go to a club, or go party, or whatever, or go buy one ticket to the latest concert. Put your money together and buy a lease scale. And look, watch out, my brother, this are 9 grams. Okay, so more or less that. And then you know exactly what to have on you and what not to have on you.
Here's my other question, and this is a hypothetical one that I raised a week ago, and I raised with you briefly at the last interview we had. Does this now, for anyone who is ingenious in a sense,
Yes.
and decides, you know what, let me create an environment where I can allow people to consume marijuana on my property and have it set up such as a nightclub, for instance, right? Each person comes in with his or her 10 grams. Presumably it's weighed at the front door, just like how you'd get a wristband. You weigh the quantity, you allow that person to come in. You have the music, you have the hookahs and whatever other paraphernalia.
The what?
The hookah. Just let us smoke, but I'm familiar with
Prostitution is illegal.
the utensils, right? But yes, so you have all of this in place. It's your private property and you're giving permission for people to enjoy responsibly while they're on your premises.
Yes.
Can the police either, one, conduct a raid for marijuana, two, prohibit the owner or the employer, the proprietor, from allowing this type of activity on his compound?
Well, let me ask you, from what I've told you, I own a bar. I have a liquor license, everything. I own a bar. And I tell my patrons or my friends, oh, I own it privately. I own this place. I own the land. I own the building. I own everything. You come into my place and you light up your weed. I can say, listen, there's no smoking in here. And you would have to stop, or else then you commit an offense. If I say, no, smoke your weed, man. Don't you think you will attract more weed smokers, people who are comfortable at your spot? Yes, you would. Can the police arrest or detain anybody if everybody is smoking 10 grams or less? No. It's private property. No. The liquor license board, the liquor license board may say, listen, ever since when you were just serving liquor and smoking cigarettes, we didn't used to have this rowdy behavior and noise being created. Since you're allowing marijuana to be smoked there, a lot of noise get created, you're becoming a nuisance. So then that might then lead the liquor license board to say this is not a safe place for people to recreate. So all we're saying is this: don't be nuisances, man. If you're going to enjoy it quietly and smoothly. And most people who smoke weed predominantly do it quietly and enjoy it smoothly. They don't make noise. So Don't be a nuisance, and as long as you're on private property, the police can't do anything if the owner gives you permission.
But how will the police know how much is 10 grams? Will they walk around with a scale?
And the police know better than the people who smoke weed. The police know because they've been arresting people for so many years. They know
but
it.
I might,
They know.
but that's not
They
sufficient.
know.
I might have a dispute. I might know I have 9 grams,
Marlene.
and they come and tell me it's 11.
Marlene,
and you can't take me
Marlene,
in.
we have surveyed 7 policemen. And we throw weed on the table. How much weed that? That's 9 grams. That's 8 grams. That's about 7. No, Mike, that's about 5. No, that's about 11. And they know. So if the
But
police...
Attorney General, you are banking on the integrity of each and every police officer in this country.
Isn't that what we do
and
now?
as you said earlier,
Isn't that what we do
there
now?
are good cops and there are bad cops.
But isn't that what we do now?
There's
But
also
why can't there
discretionary
be-
measures,
If somebody is shot in the street outside right now, who do you depend on? Who's the first line of defense? The police. So if we trust constitutionally, if we trust the police with murders, can't we trust them with marijuana possession? I mean, come on, man, come on. It's the same police.
Yeah.
It's the same police. And let me tell you something why I have every confidence in it. The police were clamoring for it. The police are saying, look, this is the waste for we time.
Yeah.
I did try to investigate one robbery, and I'm trying to, or the inspector would say, I'm trying to gather my people to discuss how we're going to deal with this area and how we're going to deal with that area in terms of crime prevention. But 4 of my officers are caught up writing up charges for people who possess half a stick of weed. It's a waste of time. So I believe the police will welcome it. If it turns out then, and the police become bad man, I say, listen to me, do you want us to give you back the work of having to arrest people for weed? They don't want it. Let's see how it plays out. And so far, it's been a week. But trust me, the floodgates have been open with this 10 grams. Nobody no get arrested for no weed possession.
Now, the very clear accusation is that this amendment, as it has been put forward, is weak. That it lacks, and you have mentioned it several times on the show, we'll see if it needs to be stricter, it'll be stricter, if we need to be more regulated.
Yeah.
Very clearly, there are identifiable gaps from the start. My question to you is, we have had the Marijuana Commission in place for several years.
Yeah.
There are several experiences we can tap into, whether within this region or in other parts of the world, that we could have made a stronger legislation so we don't have all the guessing game. Let's see, we'll see, maybe it'll need to be stronger. Eventually we'll get that into place. Why was that not done?
I have 2 experiences as attorneys, as an attorney. First of all, the first part about it not being weak legislation with gaps, show me which one. Show me which one. There are lawyers running around this country who survive on weak legislation. Weak legislation exists in England, in America, and Belize, the world over. There's no such thing as a perfect piece of legislation. The next thing is this. I have always been offended, and this was my personal input into the lawmaking. We take these acts and these laws from abroad, and we always in the past, just without thinking, just slap them and made them the law in Belize, and they did not our reality to our situation on the ground. We have to accept that the mischief we're trying to address here, people who are responsibly consuming small amounts of marijuana in the privacy of their home were being targeted unfairly. This law is to protect those people first. As I said, it can always be changed, it can always be tweaked. For example, under the Representation of the People's Act, there's a huge problem with that law, just to give a parallel, because we took it from England, but England has daily newspapers. Belize, we don't have daily newspapers. So there's always problems in the court with people who have to be on the registration list for voting. Just to give you an example, we had to craft a law that matched our reality. We cannot just take a law out of a vacuum in Colorado or Washington State or wherever and just bring it and put it to Belize. We want it to be organic, to be honest with you. We wanted it to be a work in progress. Here you have a start, and we're saying, don't complain about it, don't bitch about it, look at it, address it, analyze it, make your submission. Listen to me, Attorney General, look at Section 4 there. I think you could, and look at it, and it will be considered, and if it makes sense, it will be addressed and changed. So know that that all the supposed gaps, I mean, you can create gaps if you want to create gaps. Some person would ask, go smoking in my yard, right, big man? Yes. How if I light it on the street, then going, man, please, man, why would you do that? I mean, so you, wherever a law exists, you could always create some ridiculous scenario to try and say, okay, see, now there's a gap. They're saying, look, don't look for the gaps. Listen to what the law is trying to help you do to enjoy your marijuana, similarly to how people enjoy their alcohol and cigarettes. That's
So
all.
are you saying that you are satisfied with the amendment as it has been put forward?
I am satisfied that it is an outstanding start. Like every other law that's new.
And what is
it's
the
a great
timeline
start.
for necessary amendments or
There's
reinforcement
no
or supplementary
timeline. There's no
programs?
timeline.
It's living, basically.
It's living. All laws are living. If
Yeah,
you,
but it can be living till
it can
10
be
years
living.
from now.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm the Attorney General for now. I'm the Attorney General, and I'm telling you, I have the blessing of Cabinet and the government that if this document can be improved, let's improve it. It's an initiative that the Cabinet instructed me to take on, and I've taken it on. Let's do it. If there are more suggestions, let's hear them. Let's
So
hear
people
them.
can submit their recommendations to the Attorney General's office as to enhancements that can be made to the law.
To the marijuana law and to any other law, to the Constitution, to the misuse, to any law, you can do it. But if you have an interest in the marijuana law, you want to make a submission, make the submission. All ridiculous submissions will be rejected, of course.
Now, I want to take this a step further because there's also the issue with industrial hemp.
Yes.
And medicinal marijuana, and we have to differentiate what these
Right,
are. Go ahead
right.
and explain the difference with what the law states with industrial hemp and medical marijuana.
Medical marijuana has always been on the books. There's nothing new there, with that. This amendment does not now make it you can go into a doctor, get a prescription, and the doctor's license to. That has always existed. Nobody ever did it, but it has always existed. The industrial hemp, the definition of industrial hemp, and I'm not sure I wanted to get, it's a universally accepted formula as to the amount of THC that must be in the plant, because the marijuana plant and the hemp plant look similar. So then, but they're very different. And what we're saying is that for industrial hemp, the studies have shown that you can use it for clothing, you can use it for farming purposes, for a number of different purposes. So what we have done is taken out the industrial hemp out of the definition of cannabis. So industrial hemp will be completely legal.
Okay.
So if you have a way of extracting it or importing it or dealing with it and you want to grow hemp on your farm or whatever, you are allowed to do that fully fledged as long as your content has the right amount.
So it means that there will have to be some sort of sensitization for the drug unit, the police, to be able to differentiate between whether
Absolutely.
someone is growing hemp
Absolutely.
or...
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
any person in Belize has access to
Any
be able-
person. Do not believe any foolishness about only certain people are allowed to grow it. No,
Do you need
man.
a license?
No, you need no license to grow it as you would grow any other fruit or any other product. You grow your hemp, The only way you would need, I guess, government intervention or whatever is you're asking for concessions and stuff like that. Then the government then can set its terms. But other than that, a farmer who is growing anything, if you grow banana, if you grow whatever, sweet pepper, whatever, and you find a way to grow the hemp within the legal limits of what is industrial hemp, you're fine. You're fine.
Now, looking down the road, you have spoken about this being the first step, and we hear from you that there is essentially a drive to want to legalize marijuana. Is that what we're saying?
I don't
Moving
know if
towards-
there's a drive to it. The public, many people in the public want it. We have to consider many treaties we've signed, many bilateral arrangements that we've had. So it's not the intention of the government to make it completely legal at this point. That's not our intention.
No, I don't mean at this point.
Yeah.
Is that the long-term view?
Well, we don't know. We don't know. We have to see how this plays out first. If it turns out, what I can tell you is that if it turns out that, you know what, this easing up on the marijuana pressure has had people be more relaxed. People figure, well, okay, there is something I can do without police harassment. You notice that people are enjoying it responsibly. Then you can slowly release the grip. It will depend on how the public react. to what we have
but
now.
outside of recreational use, I mean, this is a topic that has been discussed for many years,
Right.
even within the region.
Right.
You know, you go to an OAS meeting, there's always the conversation about legalization of
Right.
marijuana, especially since we're transit countries for the drug trade. Cultivation of marijuana is seen to be also a
Right.
very good business
Right.
opportunity,
Right.
especially for developing countries.
Right.
So where are we in terms of looking to the economic benefits?
Well, you're always looking, if it turns out that more and more people, let's just say, for example, because this is it's a valid point because, well, first of all, a lot more people smoke weed than they're willing to admit. A lot of people, including many churchgoers, they smoke weed.
Yeah.
So what happens is that if you notice then, if we notice that it's becoming a big thing, you know what, people are smoking weed, then there's a consideration as well of, well, can we then, if so many people are smoking it and buying it, why don't we allow Belizeans to cultivate it, grow it, and sell it? That's one aspect. But then you have to think about this. What about corresponding banking regulations? If you are running a weed business, where do you put the money? How do you transact business? Because then remember now, the problem you're having with Colorado and Washington is that these people are making money, can't deposit their monies in the bank because the federal laws don't allow for that type of business to take place. So all of these things you would have to be able to iron out before you can say, look, I recognize you as a legitimate marijuana grower and distributor. All of those things we have to do. You may have a separate business with a bank, but simply because you have gone into the marijuana industry, they close down all your accounts that have nothing to do with it because the banks can't take the risk. So indeed, if business can be made, if a man decide, listen to me, a woman decide, I got money patch of land right in my backyard where I grow the best weed. I want to grow the weed where I smoke. And it turns out that that's the best thing. There's no limit as to what we can do, but we have to do it tonically to ensure that we can do it at a rate that the community and the market can absorb.
So, to be very clear, you can't grow it in your backyard.
No, you can't.
That's not in the
grow
law.
it.
Not even your one plant.
No, man.
I know. But, you know, you have to, I think...
Somebody asked me, what if you grow one plant, you only produce 10 grams? No. You can't do that.
You know, it is... As the Attorney General in this country, I think it is very clear the responsibility you have as one of the lawmakers in being able to ensure that the public is satisfied as best as possible with the decisions that are made.
Yes.
Having heard all the criticisms, there is substantial support. We're not negating that. But having heard the criticisms from certain sectors, are there any issues that have been communicated that seem valid, that perhaps can be remedied with adjustments to the law?
When the people who claim to have issues, who have
They
to have
don't
an
claim,
objection,
they say it.
they have an
Yeah.
issue. You ask them, what's your issue? What's your real issue? What's your real issue with what we're doing? They can't give you a solid reason.
I can give you, because I've interviewed all of them.
And then,
it's talking
no,
about
but my
the gaps
question
that
is
are
this.
identified
But
in
my
the
question
law.
is this.
It is
If it's so bad, why isn't there a move against cigarettes? If you have a move, the type of move that you have against marijuana, why aren't you moving against cigarettes? Why aren't you moving against vape? Why aren't you moving against alcohol? Why aren't you moving against these very same things that you could legitimately say that marijuana is just one of those? So
Yeah,
what
but
is your real issue?
Let me give you an example. If I tell you I have a problem with murderers and you tell me, well, why don't you go and attack the rapist?
No, I'm not saying that. So then listen to me then. Let's make illegal all drugs.
Yeah.
All. Alcohol, cigarettes, everything.
It goes back
because
to-
you have to be consistent. You cannot be unfair. You just spoke about marijuana being consumed to a large extent by people who live in the marginal societies. It makes me wonder sometimes if the drive towards making marijuana completely illegal is not an elitist type of thing.
No,
it's not
I didn't say that. I said
No,
the
I'm just
persons
saying.
who are persecuted
No,
for possession charges
I'm just saying
are
though, the
those
people
from
who make the
marginalized
arguments
communities.
against marijuana have not made one solid argument to me to say, listen, that would be a good reason why you should not legalize any amounts of it. And that argument has not been made to me that you can't also make against cigarettes and
If you look at the churches, for instance, I hate to bring this up because
No,
it
bring it
creates
up,
its own
man.
contention. However, you would have members of the clergy who would come forward and say, well, we are against marijuana, but they're not necessarily against cigarette
Which is
or
what I'm
alcohol.
asking. You're against marijuana and I hear you. Why? Why? It's not good for you. Well, is cigarettes good for you? Alcohol good for you? All we're saying is this. If they're all on the same level or they're all bad, you cannot eliminate one of, you cannot discriminate against one of them for no reason. You're not allowed to say, okay, all four of them are bad, but we don't want this third one. No. If you have no problem with the other three, what is your logical objection to the fourth one? I've not been able to be given something solid to say, listen, marijuana should be made illegal totally, Mike, for this reason. And I say, boy, this is distinguishable from cigarettes, from alcohol, from all of those things. This thing are really, really bad.
But can they use your argument to say, well, let's try cocaine or LSD and put it on that same level too then?
No, because when you look at those are clearly harder and more dangerous than alcohol, cigarettes, and marijuana. Clearly, there's night and day between
different
those.
class of drugs.
What I hear from you is, from all the critics who've been speaking out, there has been no valid concern brought forward from them so far.
No valid concern that would say, look, this is a specific reason why marijuana should be made illegal. Nobody has brought that. Nobody has brought. There's no legitimate studies to show that one is more dangerous than the other. So we're saying people in this country, we like drink, and we like smoke cigarette, and we like smoke weed. So the question is, why is the weed for recreational purposes illegal? It makes no sense at all. It makes no sense.
Some might argue strain and grade.
Oh, come on.
Well, I think...
We have good cigarette, bad cigarette. You have high quality, low quality. You have high level whiskey, low level whiskey. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Nobody has said that, no one has given me an argument that's independent.
But perhaps the issue here is, and this one I believe we can all say, we've seen the reports coming out of NDAC. We know young people are drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, huffing chemicals even, has been proven within the studies coming out of NDAC. Enforcement will be key. We have not been, I mean, I don't know about the cigarettes part, but I know with alcohol, enforcement has been weak when it comes to use by minors. At this point, when you're working with the police department...
Where are the churches on that? When you're working with the police department, what we want to do then as well, we're not going to say to the police department, oh, give the weed smokers a blight, but go pressure the alcohol users. No, we're not doing that. We would want for them to clamp down on anything that's causing a nuisance. And remember, the government is not saying that you should go out there and smoke weed. If you already don't need weed, then we encourage you to not touch it. It's a drug. If you're a minor, we're very strict on you. All we're saying is if you don't smoke weed and you don't enjoy your weed, you don't kill nobody because you enjoy your weed, then continue to enjoy your weed without the stress of having to worry that anybody will come and arrest you because a man next to you is smoking a cigarette that is dangerous for you and terrible for you. But he has no worries when the police come through the door, but you who smoke and weed have a fret. That's unfair because then there's nothing to show that that weed is more dangerous than that cigarette. There's nothing to show.
So my last question is, how do you measure the effectiveness of this amendment?
Constant feedback. Constant, the proof of when it's the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Constant feedback. Please don't let it die. Let's constantly be discussing it. I disagree with the two of you. Let the discussion not end. Come back 6 months from now, come back 8 months from now, do a survey. I noticed one of the TV stations have a 2 cents camera or whatever. Do your surveys. How is the marijuana thing affecting you? Do you like it? What are the drawbacks? And who knows, maybe somebody will come up with a good reason why we should amend it this way or amend it that way. And anything that makes sense will be entertained by myself and the government if it makes sense.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, with that, I want to thank you for sitting in this morning and having this discussion with us. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.